Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request everyone to take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, Namaskar, and a very good morning. On behalf of the Independent University, Bangladesh, and U.S. Embassy in Dhaka, I, Muhammad Rayatul Islam, Senior Officer in the Office of the Pro-Vice Chancellor, welcome you all to today's international conference titled Moving Forward in the Indo-Pacific, Bangladesh's Role in Fostering an Open, Resilient, and Interconnected Bay of Bengal and Beyond. Now, I would like to request our esteemed speakers and special guests to come up on the stage and take their seats. Professor Tanvir Hassan, PhD, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh. Sir. Our session moderator, Ambassador Retired Tariq A. Karim, the Director of the Center of Bay of Bengal Studies, Independent University, Bangladesh. His Excellency, Peter D. Haas, Ambassador of U.S. to Bangladesh. His Excellency, Mr. Gabriel Vicentin, EU Special Envoy for Indo-Pacific. Ms. Mercy Tembon, Country Director for Bangladesh and Bhutan, the World Bank. Professor Niaz Ahmed Khan, Honorable Pro-Vice Chancellor of Independent University, Bangladesh. His Excellency Mr. Vikram Doraisamy, High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, will be joining us online. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request everyone to stand up for the national anthem of Bangladesh. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, I would like to request our special guests to congregate on the stage for a group photo. I would also like to request His Excellency Mr. Charles Whitley, the Ambassador and Head of EU Delegation to Bangladesh, to come up on the stage and join everyone for a group photo. Also, I'd like to request His Excellency Mr. Saber Hossain Chowdhury, sir, MP, to come up on the stage and congregate with everyone to take a group photo. Thank you, sir. Now, I would humbly request Ambassador Retired Tariq A. Karim to moderate today's inaugural session. Tariq, sir. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Before I begin the proceedings and invite the Vice Chancellor, I take the privilege of the moderator to say a few general remarks and then hand over the Vice Chancellor. I take this opportunity of welcoming all distinguished guests, faculty and students, and media friends. My center, the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies at the IUB, is very happy to be partnering with the U.S. Embassy in convening this important conference. The timing is significant: 100 years of the birth of our father of the nation, 50 years of independence as a sovereign independent state, and significantly, it also marks 50 years of Bangladesh-U.S. relations. This conference follows on the heels of another conference now underway between the U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka and the Kotawala Defense University in Colombo on the theme of U.S.-South Asia engagement in the Indo-Pacific, and will, in a sense, build on some of the issues discussed there, although we have not been able to draw as much synergy from it as we would have hoped to have done had these two conferences been held on consecutive days rather than at overlapping times. However, having said that, I did follow the Sri Lanka conference in Colombo from 9 a.m. today, and had the privilege of listening to U.S. Ambassador Julie Chang, and more importantly, the U.S. Assistant Secretary Donald Liu. And I'm very pleased to say, to pick on one thing which he mentioned in clarifying the U.S.'s philosophy of the Indo-Pacific, that the concept is not directed against any country or group, but it is to foster an open, resilient, and Indo-Pacific which brings us all together. And that essentially fits in neatly with the way Bangladesh looks at our own region and the global expanse beyond. Contextually, if you look at the theme of the conference in a mind's eye, imagine you're zooming out and zooming in on planet Earth from space. You'll see that all the oceans are interconnected. And in these, of 71% of the planet is basically comprised of oceans. So planet Earth is essentially a very oceanic planet. And in this oceanic region that we inhabit, the Indian Ocean is the center. It's known by many as the Great Middle Bay. It is flanked on the east by the vast Pacific Ocean, on the west by the Atlantic Ocean, which is much larger, and to the south by the Antarctic Ocean. So that gives it the name the Great Middle Way. Now, again from space, zoom in a little further, and you'll find the Bay of Bengal is right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And if you zoom in even further, you'll find Bangladesh, which is at the apex of the inverted funnel-shaped Bay of Bengal, is right in the center of it. So in a sense, Bangladesh is at the epicenter of the oceanic sphere, with all major middle, lesser powers now focusing attention on the Indo-Pacific region. We bring to fore our historic heritage that we always had, the legacy of being a connecting nation. We are a bridge nation. We connect the Indian Ocean with the Pacific. We brought civilizations from the west to the east and from the east to the west, and we shall continue doing that. The basic tenets of our foreign policy as laid down by Father of the Nation, friendship to all and malice to none, is derived from that precept, that situated where we are, we work with everyone, not against anyone, but as was made very clear by our Prime Minister yesterday, we stand upright by principles of peace, justice, and humanity with everyone. We will stand by on principles, but we will not take part against any country on behalf of any country. With these words, I would like to, this conference incidentally is divided into three parts. This is the inaugural session where the distinguished speakers will give the broad perspectives on how they view the whole subject. Then there will be the first thematic session post-lunch, which will focus on the theme of maritime and waterways connectivity. That's what Bangladesh is all about. These three scholars will present three papers, followed by discussions by several distinguished panelists. The second thematic session deals with the challenges of developing resilience in the region, addressing issues related to climate change, environmental and ecological degradation, and their impact on security. The Bay of Bengal, incidentally, is an imminently endangered commons. I think very few people are aware of this, and I think in the second session, chaired by our eminent Professor Salimul Haq, this will come out. Very few people know that we have 60,000 square kilometers of a dead zone perilously close to our waters. We don't know why it is there, what's induced it, where it is moving. Should it move closer, you can say goodbye to our dreams of the blue economy and harvesting from it. It has marine plastic seepage taking in, and one projection says in 50 years, if we don't address this menace, the whole of the Bay of Bengal is going to become a plastic soup. There are plastic soups in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, much bigger, but in the Indian Ocean, the only plastic soup likely to develop is in the Bay of Bengal. And that will affect a quarter of the world's population habited in this region. If that comes in further, it will spawn off many non-security traditional challenges, which might even spawn into security traditional challenges. So that's why we are, this conference today is on a very moot topic, and we hope our panelists in the two thematic sessions will bring them out. And of course, the visions of the different countries represented here. One ambassador, Ambassador Vikram Doraiswamy, will join us online. The Sri Lankan ambassador who was supposed to attend has regretted because he has to deal with some issue which has come up immediately. However, we hope that we'll have a statement later on sometimes. With those, may I now request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Tanveer Hassan, to please address the formal address.
Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, and a very good morning to you all. Before I say anything, let me first talk about the month of March. The month of March is very special to people from Bangladesh. It has some huge significance. First, the March 7th, the historic speech on March 7th that united the country and got us into an armed struggle against our oppressor. Then comes the March 17th, the day Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was born, who led this country to light. Then comes the dark night of 25th March, when there was a crackdown on our people, innocent people, by the intervening force from Pakistan. Then from the ashes comes sunlight. On 26 March, we declared independence and our armed struggle started. So before I start, I would like to pay deep respect to people who has given their lives during the War of Liberation, the women who sacrificed because of this war, and all the children that got killed during the war. And regards to all the freedom fighters who took up arms to fight for the country. Back to the theme of the conference. First and foremost, let me thank everyone who has taken their time out of their busy schedule to be with us today, and I welcome you all to the international conference titled Moving Forward in the Indo-Pacific, Bangladesh's Role in Fostering an Open, Resilient, and Interconnected Bay of Bengal and Beyond, jointly hosted by the U.S. Embassy in Dhaka and the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies, Independent University, Bangladesh. I would especially like to extend my gratitude and welcome our chief guest, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, MP and Honorable Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, who was scheduled to be attending this session in person, but instead he would be sending us a video recording of his greetings. We also, I believe, are supposed to have Dr. Gauhar Rizvi, International Affairs Advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister. I'm guessing he would be joining online as well. Honorable Mr. Saber A. Chaudhary, MP and Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee for the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change. Our Chairman, Mr. Abdul Hai Sarkar, was supposed to be here as well, and he had to cancel it due to some other pressing reasons. So he also asked me to bring his greetings to everybody who is in attendance. I take this opportunity to particularly welcome to Bangladesh and to IUB His Excellency Mr. Peter D. Haas, Ambassador of the United States of America to Bangladesh, who recently presented his credential to the Honorable President of Bangladesh as the U.S. Ambassador. Welcome to Bangladesh, Your Excellency, and thank you for co-hosting the conference with IUB. May I also welcome our other special guests this morning, and I am going by the list, hopefully I'm not missing anybody out. His Excellency Mr. Gabriel Vicentin, Special Envoy of European Union for the Indo-Pacific, who is actually on official visit to Bangladesh and was kind enough to stop by at IUB. And I'm sure you will be impressed by our campus and activities during your brief stay here. His Excellency Mr. Vikram Dorasamy, High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. He will be joining online, I believe. Then we have Ms. Mashfi bint Shams, Secretary East, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Shabir Ahmed Chaudhary, Secretary West, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Mercy Temban, Country Director of World Bank to Bangladesh and Bhutan. I'd also like to thank and welcome our students, my colleagues, and the participants and discussants who are going to present their papers, and our friends from the media. I know you see some students here. Although we are now physically open, we are still following some COVID protocols as much as possible. That's part of the reason why you see the auditorium is not as full, but there are students who are watching us online. So there are audiences beyond this room who are watching us closely. The issues of interconnectedness and regional cooperation are of great importance to a nation like Bangladesh. Our nation has embraced the philosophy of peace and focused on sustaining fruitful and healthy relationships with all countries, and especially our friends in the Indo-Pacific. In this era of globalization, nations are vastly dependent on each other as we share resources to fuel our economies with products and services that uplift us all. That's why we must first understand the role of Bay and its importance to the region. I wouldn't talk much about this topic because I neither have the formal training nor have the professional expertise to talk about Bay of Bengal. So I don't want to abuse my capacity as a Vice Chancellor and put you through a torture of talking some perhaps incoherent conversation on Bay of Bengal on which I have no clue on, except that I know it exists and it's important, but I have no formal training. So I'll excuse myself from talking further on this topic and would look forward to listening to the expert in this field here on the podium, on the stage, and other people. I'm sure we all will learn a lot on this burning issue that's of consequential importance to our national life. Now, I would like to take a moment to discuss our partnership with the U.S. Embassy, which is our partner for this event today. At present, we celebrate the 50 years of friendship and diplomatic relationships with each other. As a Bangladeshi American who spent 35 years of his life in the U.S., I am personally proud of the friendship and the fruitful collaborations between the two countries. We appreciate the consistent support and encouragement from the U.S. Embassy in regard to our university activities. And let me take this opportunity to personally welcome Peter Hess, His Excellency, because he went to college not too far from where I lived. And, and his wife is also from very close proximity of the area I lived. So welcome, and good to see somebody from close by coming back to Bangladesh as a U.S. ambassador. IUB is transforming with a focus on inclusive development while experiencing unprecedented growth in the student body. Right now, we have little under 10,000 students enrolled at this university. This is an all-time record at IUB. We are supplementing our academic curriculum to produce tech-savvy, globally conscious, and environmentally responsible future leaders. Close to 40% of our student population is female. As part of our inclusive development strategy, we are looking to improve the needs of our female clientele and taking appropriate steps to ensure a conducive environment to help them to reach their full potential. If you look at the demography of Bangladesh and proportion of men and women, if you look at the demography of high school going students and their demography, if you look at the college kids, the university kids, their demography, and the academic performance and their demography, there is no alternative but to make sure our female population gets fully involved in this process to help us speed up to our goal in achieving our 2041 status. After listening to the female clientele, some of the steps we took. We introduced extracurricular activities, especially for them, because they did not feel part of the campus, part of the survey. We have introduced martial arts, and we have just constructed a yoga studio. They will be pressed into operation within a month. This is, again, listening to our female clienteles. And also, to my surprise, pleasant delight, actually, I was pleasantly surprised, they wanted to play basketball. As you enter the campus, on the right-hand side, there's a parcel of land, and we are developing it as a sports complex. And it will have a multi-purpose use, but I have announced it before, but I'll take this opportunity to announce it again, that as soon as this is finished, we will be proud to have the first ever female basketball team in this country at the university level. And I look forward to help, because we have coaching needs and other needs, and we don't have female coaches in this country. So I would look to some of you sitting here in getting some of the resources so that we can make this girls basketball team not only our ambassador to outside world, we want to be a powerhouse in the region. Academically speaking, we have started a bunch of new programs. We are very mindful of how the world is changing, and we are trying to embed technology and climate issues into the curriculum. As you all know, Bangladesh contributes a very little in this whole issue, but being given its geographical position and otherwise, we are to be at trouble. We'll be in more trouble than most other countries. So we contributed a very little, but we take the brunt of that outcome. So we need to have our next generation to be conversant about the issues, to understand what I find, it's been a year I'm back in the country, and I listen to the experts and as well as normal speakers. I think there's a great deal of confusion. What is getting is a result of climate change and what is a man-made disaster. I think there's a huge confusion. I would have the audacity to say, even among the practitioners and theoreticians, they often lump these together, and that won't help us to negotiate in a global setting. So I would urge, with my limited knowledge, to all the experts in this country, please make it viable proposal. Don't mix up climate change issues with man-made issues, because that will make your case weaker in the global stance. We need our kids to be educated, conversant, so that they know their rights. They are able to speak in any forum with correct information and advance our cause. And I hope the students who are listening to us today will take it to their heart, take good points from these meetings, so that in their own sphere of life, they can advocate for Bangladesh and talk about our rightful place on this particular issue. Thank you so much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for your words of wisdom and counsel. And I'm sure that, all of us, not just the students, will take your message to heart. The Foreign Minister was personally committed to attending this when we first scheduled this many months ago, and then we rescheduled it. But as it happens, he has to be at the BIMSTEC summit. He is right now on the way back to Bangladesh. So very graciously, he sent us a message, and we are going to play that message for you.
Ambassador, faculty and students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you all. I congratulate the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies at IUB for organizing this important conference on moving forward in the Indo-Pacific. Bangladesh. Vice Chancellor, Chairman, Board of Trustees of IUB, distinguished ambassadors, faculty and students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. I congratulate the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies at IUB for organizing this important conference on moving forward in the Indo-Pacific, Bangladesh's role in fostering an open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal and beyond, in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy in Bangladesh. As I speak to you, Bangladesh is celebrating its golden jubilee of independence and the birth centenary of its father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Most auspiciously, in tandem, We are also celebrating the golden jubilee of bilateral ties with our friend, United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh is an independent and sovereign state for only 50 years. But we are set in the backdrop of more than thousands of years of nation building and even longer frame of civilizational landscaping. Throughout its recorded history, since the time of King Shashanko, the question of a human identity free from the oppressive clutches of autocracy and autocratic dispensations propelled the Bengali psyche in aspiring for a land of its own. Bangladesh is a country conceived from the highest ideals imaginable by humans. Humans' ideas of freedom, democracy, justice, inclusivity, and equality. Amongst these, the idea of democracy was the key driving force behind each of the movements that the nation produced and witnessed in the 20th century. Be it the language movement of 1952 or the six-point movement of 1966, or for that matter, even the initial struggles of the post-1970 election till March 1971, Bangladesh was roused by the greatest Bengali of all times, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, for the cause of democracy and ensuring rights of Bengalis. The idea was always very simple. The right to food and the right to vote, the right to choose, free will, the right to life and dignity. Distinguished guest, Bangladesh is indeed a development miracle. Our economic growth does not come from a usurpation of wealth. Rather, it is etched into the institutional architecture of supply-side economics, featuring the agriculture, RMG, the individual entrepreneur, trader, and the various communication subsectors like connectivity. This segment of time that we are crossing now is a unique point in history for many reasons. The country that started its journey with nothing in shape and in good order is first graduating into an economically solid and densely calibrated middle-income economy. We aim to become a fully developed country by 2041. And the world is also passing through a dynamic shift, the greatest transformation, the biggest reset ever because of the unprecedented event of this COVID pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic unquestionably presents an era-defining challenges to public health and the global economy. Its political consequences, both short and long term, are yet to fathom correctly. While the pandemic has claimed millions of lives, caused businesses to be shut down, left thousands of people unemployed, disrupted the global supply chain, made the global trade to have fallen by 5.3% on average, and caused the annual global GDP growth rate to plummet to negative 3.045%. It has opened many new potentials and given rise to many new hopes. Ladies and gentlemen, Bangladesh is located at the cusp of the vast Indian landscape, coasting on the frontiers of the Bay of Bengal, funnel and touching the northwest tip of the troubled Myanmar territories. Its geographical location makes it strategically important for invariably all major parts of the world. And the great opening at the south, the Bay of Bengal, is also not just another sea. It is a living and breathing ecosystem of life forms, economic priorities, commercial and diplomatic efforts, individual business and corporate interest. Our location and our size are our de facto assets. The world that surrounds us is nonlinear, complex, adaptive, fast-paced, and ambiguous. Recently, many countries are taking a lot of interest in the Indo-Pacific region, and recently France and the European Union arranged an event on developing better connectivity with the Indo-Pacific countries. We welcome their position that Indian Ocean, including Bay of Bengal, to remain free, open, inclusive, and free for navigation for all countries without encumbrances. European Union is a model of great connectivity, and Bangladesh is a hub of connectivity in this region. European Union has great road, rail, air, river connectivity. They have excellent infrastructure connectivity, both tangible and intangible. While we welcome our development partners to assist us with tangible infrastructure like rail, road, river, and air connectivity, we also welcome free mobility of labor, capital, technology like that of the European Union with the Indo-Pacific countries. Ladies and gentlemen, as the theme of this conference focuses on the importance of the Bay of Bengal, that is the maritime bridge between Indian and the Pacific Oceans, I must draw attention to the fact that it was Bangabandhu who, with his foresight, rightly recognized the enormous economic importance of the boundless oceanic resources for the development of Bangladesh. During the very early years of war-ravaged Bangladesh, and during his stewardship, the Territorial Waters and Maritime Zones Act 1974 was enacted, which was the first act of such kind in South Asia, 8 years before the UN could approve Law of the Sea in 1982. And it laid down the foundation for our rights over the resources of Bay of Bengal. He laid the bedrock of our democratic values and aspiration for peace, progress, and development. Following him, her illustrious father's legacy, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina proudly rekindled the dream of Bangabandhu of building better relations and cooperation for mutual benefit with all countries in our immediate region and beyond, bilaterally, regionally, and also globally. The significance of today's conference is of great essence as we embark on the ideals of cooperation, connectedness, friendship with each other. The global pandemic has demonstrated not only our interconnectedness and our interdependence, but also our fragility and vulnerability. Right now, unity, concord, and solidarity must be our leading principles more than ever. But as the current president of IORA, we will help to promote these principles for benefit of all. Distinguished guest, Bangladesh has set in motion its Vision 2041 and the Delta Plan 2100. The single most vital avenue for such a massive undertaking is the blue economy. Bangladesh has been co-sponsoring the Zone of Peace resolution for the Bay of Bengal. We have resolved our maritime disputes with unclosed arbitration mechanism, the ETLAws. While we always appreciate and reinforce our faith in a rule-based, value-based international order, we must choose our own destiny with knowledge, with skills, and more than everything else, with courage and with conviction. It is our interest as much as of other regional or global parties. The sea lanes of the Bay of Bengal continue to remain open and free for peaceful navigation. At the same time, it is equally in our interest that at least the Bay littoral should collaborate on putting in place a rules-based framework for governance of the Bay, considering its ecological health and ensuring its security from malevolent forces. Bangladesh, as a responsible country totally committed to the ideals of global and regional peace and security, and acutely aware of the dangers faced from environmental and ecological disequilibrium, is committed to working in concert with all its big co-littorals towards protection and preservation of these critically and existential important commons that the Bay of Bengal is for us all. We encourage our think tanks and centers of learning to convene or to co-host with other similar-minded regional institutions more conferences like today involving government officials, scholars, academia, and think tanks to develop a common narrative of the Bay of Bengal. Project-based cooperation should be encouraged. I am confident that the establishment of the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies at IUB is a major and worthwhile step towards that direction. I put my trust in you for establishing a knowledge-based society with lesser social gaps. I want you to appreciate and accelerate for development, leaving no one behind. Everyone in Bangladesh should be part of the development efforts. I want you to know that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is always ready to render you support in your pursuits along with our friends, including the United States of America. We are looking at the future with great expectation, a future where human dignity and human freedom would coincide with responsible prosperity for all. Let this journey commence in the auspicious lights of the day. Today, I wish the conference and its deliberations all success, and I look forward to being informed about its outcome. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, may Bangladesh live forever.
We thank the Honorable Foreign Minister for his very stirring and inspiring message. I think all of us get a very clear idea of not only how Bangladesh looks at itself, but how it looks at the world and the region. I think his clarion call of the importance we attach to the Bay of Bengal, of our commitment to a free, open, and resilient Indo-Pacific is very clearly stated here. So is his hope and vision that all the Bay of Bengal littorals will actually work together in preservation and sustenance of this vast commons. And in that sense, perhaps, when he mentioned about the rules-based order that we look at, it is my personal vision, I don't know how many people share it, that the Bay of Bengal littorals will perhaps one day come forward. He evoked the example of the European Union, embark on a process similar to the European Union, which led to European Union today. It started with just the humble European economic cooperation. So that's where I think the Bay of Bengal littorals should and can start looking at these questions. Where can they cooperate? How will it draw them closer together? And perhaps preservation of the commons that they share, that sustains us, not only in terms of our habitat, but also in terms of our livelihoods, is the one they need to focus on. Before I proceed, and before I call in, I recognize several good friends here in the audience. Notably, I'm thankful to Mr. Sabir Hussain Chaudhry, although he's supposed to be the guest of honor in the closing session and speak on the wrapping up. I'm very grateful to you, sir, for having taken time and gracing us with your occasion. It shows your interest in the subject matter and your affection for us. I recognize several good friends from the diplomatic corps who have come. Foremost, I recognize the Australian High Commissioner here, the European Head of Mission, Charles Whiteley here, my old friend and colleague and comrade-in-arms from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Admiral Khurshid Alam. He and I worked closely together in getting our maritime agreement, the historic agreement in place, and last but not least, I recognize Ambassador Mustafa Turan from the Turkish Embassy. Thank you very much for coming. I now have great pleasure in calling on our partner in this particular conference today, Ambassador Peter Haas. First of all, welcome to Bangladesh, Ambassador Haas. I hope you will find this not only a rewarding post, but a post on where you can build further on whatever we have achieved so far in 50 years of Bangladesh-US relationship. He has held many important assignments. Immediately before coming, he was the acting Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, so we know where his forte has been. He was also the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the same region. He has served over 5 geographical bureaus within the state, held several important assignments. So his assignment here is also an indication of the importance that the United States attaches to Bangladesh. May I welcome you and invite you to address us.
Thank you very much. Before I do my prepared remarks, I just want to give a shout out to the Independent University of Bangladesh for having 40% of your student body female. That is a remarkable achievement. It's remarkable how ingrained it is in the leadership of the university's mindset. It is a tremendous opportunity. My only wish is that in the not too near future, we won't ever mention it again because it will be so deeply ingrained in all of our societies that we don't even notice it. But a huge congratulations. So if there's one point I want to make clear, it is this. Bangladesh and the United States share different but strikingly similar visions of the Indo-Pacific region. I'll say it again. Bangladesh and the United States share different but strikingly similar visions of the Indo-Pacific region. We all just heard the foreign minister lay out his vision of the Indo-Pacific and the Bay of Bengal, and you will find that the words that I say are strikingly similar. The other thing I would like to say is that we can and do work together closely with Bangladesh on those areas where our visions overlap. The Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina described Bangladesh's vision for the region at the 2021 Paris Peace Forum. She said, and I quote, "The Indo-Pacific region must be an area of peace and prosperity for all. Our vision for the region is to have a free, open, peaceful, secure, and inclusive region." The United States wholeheartedly agrees. When President Joe Biden released the United States Indo-Pacific strategy, he said, and I quote, "The future of each of our nations, and indeed the world, depends upon a free and open Indo-Pacific, enduring and flourishing in the decades ahead." Sounds pretty similar, doesn't it? So the one thing is clear. People and governments of the region want more and better opportunities for their people. They want more chances to connect within their nations, between their nations, and around the world. They want to be better prepared for crises like the pandemic and global warming. They want peace and stability. The people throughout the Indo-Pacific also want democracy and for their human rights to be respected. The United States Indo-Pacific strategy, and I'll describe ours in a little more detail and how it intersects with Bangladesh, has 5 key elements. And these elements guide our long-term engagement with the Indo-Pacific region and the Bay of Bengal. The United States envisions a region in the Indo-Pacific that is free and open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient. Today's conference offers us a chance to reflect on each of these pillars, on Bangladesh's contributions to them, and how the United States can partner with Bangladesh in the future to advance our shared goals. First, the United States will advance a free and open Indo-Pacific. This means a region where problems will be dealt with openly, where rules will be agreed transparently and applied fairly, where individual countries will be able to choose their own path and their own partners, and a region where the people of each country will be allowed to freely elect their leadership. Russia's brutal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine is a wake-up call for the entire world. These ideas we aspire to in the Indo-Pacific cannot be taken for granted, but rather they must be defended. And let me be clear about one thing. The goal of defending these ideals is not about keeping any particular country down. Rather, it's to protect the right of all countries to choose their own path, free from coercion, free from intimidation, and relying upon their own sovereignty. Bangladesh has made very important contributions to this cause. For instance, by committing to the peaceful resolution of its land and maritime border disputes, Bangladesh has made the Bay of Bengal an example for the entire world to follow. A free and open Indo-Pacific is also a region where goods, ideas, and people flow freely across land, cyberspace, and the open seas. We will work with Bangladesh and other partners to ensure the region's seas and skies are governed and used according to international law. We will also seek to advance common approaches to critical and emerging technologies, the internet, cyberspace, all of which need to be done in a way that protects privacy and human dignity. Second, we will continue to forge stronger relations and connections within and beyond the region. We must work together as a community to tackle our shared problems. Bangladesh is a committed leader to regional cooperation, such as host to the BIMSTEC Secretariat, as chair of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and as an active member of SAARC, the Colombo Plan, and more. Bangladesh also knows the importance of helping its neighbors, like through providing COVID-19 assistance last year to the Maldives, or supporting Sri Lanka with a currency swap at the height of Sri Lanka's cash crisis. And as ambassador, I'm committed to building our bilateral partnership to tackle these shared challenges together. Our ties do not just connect our governments, but bridge our people as well. We're deepening our ties between our people through educational and exchange opportunities. Since Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's participation in a foreign leaders exchange in the United States in 1958, nearly 5,000 Bangladeshis have studied, taught, and developed professional expertise through U.S. government-sponsored exchange programs. In addition, Bangladesh is the fastest growing country in sending students to the United States. Last year, nearly 8,600 students attended world-class research institutions in the United States. And economic relations between our two countries are expanding quickly, including with a visit next month from a high-level delegation made up of U.S. businesses coming here to investigate opportunities in Bangladesh. Third, we will promote broad-based prosperity so that no one gets left behind in the 21st century. Bangladesh's strong economic growth and entrepreneurial spirit drive the entire Indo-Pacific economy forward. As Bangladesh diversifies its industrial base, regional supply chains will become more resilient. And as labor rights and worker safety reforms take home, the benefits of this growth will be shared more broadly. The United States is the largest source of foreign direct investment in Bangladesh. As ambassador, I commit to work with Bangladesh to build an attractive investment environment and support U.S. investors to enter other sectors for the benefit of all of our people. At President Biden's direction, we are developing a comprehensive Indo-Pacific economic framework, which will include shared objectives in key areas: climate and clean energy, fair trade facilitation, resilient supply chains, and digital economy. I look forward to working on these issues with the people and the government of Bangladesh in the coming months. Fourth, we will bolster Indo-Pacific security. Threats are evolving. Our security approach must evolve with them. We will seek closer security cooperation with partners, including Bangladesh, to tackle challenges ranging from violent extremism to illegal fishing to human trafficking, where Bangladesh has made incredible strides. The United States is a proud partner to Bangladesh on these challenges and more. For instance, last year we provided 10 metal shark boats and 10 Defender-class boats to the Bangladesh Navy and Bangladesh Coast Guard. These vessels will support Bangladesh's ability to secure its territorial waters and exclusive economic zone, counter trafficking of all types, and remain a bulwark against piracy in the Bay of Bengal. And finally, we will help build regional resilience to transnational threats. The COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis underscore the urgency of this task. Bangladesh has been a leader on both fronts. By vaccinating 70% of its population with the first dose and counting, Bangladesh is safeguarding its own people and the world from the pandemic. The United States has already sent more than 180 million safe, effective doses to the Indo-Pacific, including 61 million to Bangladesh alone, more doses than we have donated to any other country in the world. Bangladesh's leadership of the Climate Vulnerable Forum has sent a powerful message to the world. We need a truly global commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, including from all major emitters. On climate, we have mobilized billions of dollars in clean energy, clean air, and climate resilience projects throughout the region. And President Biden has pledged to quadruple U.S. climate assistance to $11.4 billion annually by 2024. Last year here in Bangladesh, we launched a $17 million flagship clean energy project to help pave the way to building affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy systems. So I've just outlined the 5 key elements of the United States Indo-Pacific strategy and how Bangladesh fits in them. They are a free and open Indo-Pacific, a connected Indo-Pacific, a prosperous Indo-Pacific, a secure Indo-Pacific, and a resilient Indo-Pacific. But before I close, I'd like to focus for a minute on what the Indo-Pacific strategy is not. First of all, the Indo-Pacific strategy is not a military alliance, nor does it ever seek to become one. Number 2, the Indo-Pacific strategy is not about a contest between a US-centric region or a China-centric region. Indeed, we view the Indo-Pacific as its own region. Third, the Indo-Pacific strategy is not designed to make anyone choose between countries. One of the key tenets of our strategy is that every country should be able to choose its own path, free from pressure or coercion. In sum, the Indo-Pacific strategy is a positive, shared vision for creating a region where all nations can thrive. Bangladesh, China, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, the United States, and each and every other country in the region. Every single defining issue of the 21st century runs through the Indo-Pacific. The climate crisis, global health, the future of technology, whether nations will be free to chart their own path. What happens here will, more than any other region, shape the trajectory of the world in the 21st century. That is why it's vital that the United States work together with Bangladesh as partners to achieve this common vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Ambassador Peter Haas, for that speech, your statement of great clarity And thank you for actually laying it out publicly that much of the talk or the unnecessary debate on what the Indo-Pacific is and what it gears towards and has raised unnecessary confusion in public minds, I think it dispels that greatly and very clearly and eloquently. Thank you very much. As you have said, your vision that you have from the United States and ours are so very similar to each other. And in general principles, there can be no disputing on that. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, I have great pleasure in inviting His Excellency Vikram Doraiswamy, the High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. He is a distinguished diplomat with a brilliant career. He is incidentally a China specialist and fluent in several languages, and it's particularly relevant that representing India as he does, he is in Bangladesh. I see him on the screen. Welcome, High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Tariq Karim, sir. It's a great pleasure, as always, to respond to any opportunity for any interaction that you organize. As friends at the university know, many of us operate on the simple principle that when Ambassador Tariq Karim says jump, we only ask how high. So it's a delight to be here again, as always, with you. Thank you also for putting together this very distinguished panel of speakers and experts. I'm delighted to see our new colleague, Ambassador Peter Haas there, as well as my old friend, Secretary West at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh. Also, I noticed other distinguished ambassadors, the Vice Chancellor and leadership of the university, Member of Parliament, Sabir Hassan Chaudhary Sahab, a lot of good friends here. So good morning, Shubho Shakal, and Salam Alaikum to everybody there. I wanted to set out a few thoughts about the Indo-Pacific at the outset, and pretty much in an uncoordinated but similar fashion, talk at a macro level about how the India-Bangladesh relationship fits into that. First, let me say that the idea is here, what I'd like to do is to emphasize why the Indo-Pacific matters in everyone's conception of the world and the international domain that ought to be of importance to everybody, business, politicians, academics, and of course, foreign policy practitioners. What is the Indo-Pacific really about? Literally, it signifies the confluence of the Indian and the Pacific Oceans, which can no longer be handled as distinct spheres. In other words, we're talking about a broadly distinct maritime space that connects Africa, Asia, Eurasia's Pacific coast, Oceania, and the Pacific coast of the Americas. Over 50% of global trade traverses through this space. Over 65% of the world's energy goes through this space. 64% of the world's population lives here, and 62% of the global GDP is concentrated in this region. Fairly obviously, therefore, security, stability, peace, and prosperity of this region is crucial not just for the region itself, obviously, but for the world in entirety. Why then should we ask, are we looking at it in a joint rather than separate manner? It is often tempting to talk about things in the form of grand strategy and diplomatic signaling and nuance and so on and so forth. I see often that there is great speculation in the media about what geopolitical signaling this exercise represents. And I think perhaps it is important, as our American colleague just pointed out, that sometimes the truth is more literal and more prosaic. And as a result, it is of more everyday relevance to all of us. Whether it is by the yardsticks of trade, investment, connectivity and travel, or politics and security, what begins in the Pacific Ocean no longer ends there, and the same holds true for the Indian Ocean region. In a sense, therefore, the landscape, capabilities and activities of the totality of the region are now different. Every nation and region would have its own vision of such realities. But when I speak for us as in India, I can say with some clarity that for us, the Indo-Pacific concept captures a mix of our broadening horizons of the world, our widening interests, trade, economic, security, and beyond that, and our own increasingly globalized activities, both by Indian businesses as well as by Indian civil society, Indian students, so the broadest range of our interests. Many agree with us, and some can offer additional justifications. I'm sure Ambassador Haas or any other distinguished speaker here would have his or her own perspective of the Indo-Pacific. Effectively, I can, however, suggest that the purpose here is that we need to recognize that there is already an effective reality. Quite often, as my minister has once said before, we tend not to recognize that analysis lags behind development on the ground. The Indo-Pacific, as my minister said earlier, is not tomorrow's forecast, but yesterday's reality. If we accept this as a reality that we are today confronted with, then this also helps us recognize that there is a regional manifestation of a global trend that's already taking place. As societies got more globalized and the power distribution globally has been rebalanced, the interests of the many now extend beyond their near proximity. This applies as much to Bangladesh as it does to India or to any other nation in the Indo-Pacific. This trend is particularly visible in Asia, which has in many senses been at the heart of a new economic resurgence. Whether viewed from the perspective of resources, endeavors or challenges, it is therefore no longer realistic to confine our thinking within the earlier box. Doing so would mean that we are either being deliberately outdated or that we have chosen to make only selective exceptions. Neither, of course, suits India, and nor, may I venture to suggest, would it suit a nation of 170 million, which has consequential interests in the world, such as Bangladesh. In many senses, therefore, you could equally argue that denying the Indo-Pacific is, in a sense, refuting the idea of globalization. Whether or not we wish to get into the debate about who owns the concept of the Indo-Pacific, it is reasonable to recognize that in any concept, in any geo-economic reality, it is possible for there to be a diversity of opinions and a multiplicity of concepts. So it's possible for us to have an ASEAN approach to the Indo-Pacific, an Indian approach to the Indo-Pacific, an American approach to the Indo-Pacific, an EU approach to the Indo-Pacific, and indeed, in the future, or even in the present, a Bangladeshi approach to the Indo-Pacific. There is no hard and fast rule, in other words, of what the ideal Indo-Pacific strategy should involve. It is fundamentally a recognition of the realities that today exist and a nation's own interests in dealing with those realities. I would suggest, in that sense, that now that we are at a particular point of time where there is a broad trajectory of opinion in favor of understanding or at least engaging with this concept, it seems to me logical that we at least pick up bits of this concept that are relevant to us and to our nations. For India, we certainly see the Indo-Pacific as primarily a maritime concept and a maritime space where there is a need for much more integration or coordination between nations to better manage the collective commons that constitute the global maritime commons. Now, for us, a safe, secure, and stable maritime space is a necessary condition for peace, security, and prosperity. Conversely, threats there also imperil human security in all its dimensions, including economic, commercial, ecological, as well as environment. The complexity of such challenges has now become visibly too large for any one nation or any one group of nations to address by itself. In fact, the very vastness of this space, the idea of two gigantic maritime commons being seen as one larger continuum, makes it logical for us to think of going beyond individual countries securing individual needs, to try and finding collective efforts to secure collective benefit so that these global commons are better secured. It is the challenge of harmonizing these kinds of pressures and such coordination that an Indo-Pacific policy makes sense for each nation to evolve and develop. Most of us at this event would intuitively appreciate why each of our nations needs to give the Indo-Pacific its fullest attention. For India, the era of reform and opening up to the world, what is today called liberalization 1.0 in India, began with intensive engagement with East Asia, ASEAN, and Oceania. It was only a few years in the making before additional facets were added to these aspects of cooperation, going beyond trade to connectivity and security. Looking east, as Prime Minister Narasimha Rao said in the 1990s, rapidly became acting east, and it kept growing. We have since reached out to the Pacific coast to the US and Canada. We have increased our activities with Latin America, and our engagement to the Pacific Islands, including with and in partnership with Australia, has also become weighty and substantive in and of itself. So far from it being an arcane issue of international relations, the Indo-Pacific today for India is a bread and butter expression of our political, economic, connectivity, travel, and societal interests, and it relies heavily on ensuring the safety and security of the maritime domain. To give this concept practical shape, we have proposed at the ASEAN East Asia Summit in November 2019 an Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. This initiative was aimed at furthering practical cooperation by all nations in the region as an open, non-treaty-based global initiative. It had 7 pillars in it to address different aspects of the challenges that the world collectively faces. These range from maritime security, maritime ecology, maritime resources, capacity building and resource sharing, to disaster risk reduction and management, science, technology, and academic cooperation, and of course, obviously, trade, connectivity, and maritime transport. The Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative was piloted as an inclusive and open initiative, seeking to better manage, conserve, sustain, and secure the maritime domain. It did not envisage creating a new institutional framework that would rely on ASEAN, that would go beyond anything that ASEAN and the EAS framework had set up. Obviously, it was open to more partners and non-ASEAN, non-EAS players to also participate. We had, of course, looked forward to having more countries join and to take on separate pillars of activity in this. And in this, Australia, Japan, and several other countries, including some of the EU, have already indicated interest and activities. Now, let me try and fit within this larger overarching concept the India-Bangladesh relationship in this context. Obviously, given the extent and the depth of India-Bangladesh relations, covering as they do almost every area of activity, governmental and people to people, I do not propose to make this a lecture about India-Bangladesh relations, because that would, of course, eat into the larger time of everybody else here. But let me just say, from an Indo-Pacific perspective, a strong, progressive, and developing partnership between India and Bangladesh, based on the sustainable values that we share from the foundational moment of our relationship in 1971, at the time of Bangladesh's liberation. Such a relationship is in the fundamental interests of the sub-region and beyond. Therefore, we could put it the other way around. A strong relationship between India and Bangladesh is a necessary anchor for the security, stability, and prosperity of not only the South Asian sub-region, but also the entire Indo-Pacific region. It ensures that the world's largest bay is an area of cooperation and prosperity, that the world's largest bay, the Bay of Bengal, is also a mechanism by which transport linkages as well as environmental actions to reverse some of the negative effects of human activity upon the oceans can be reversed. And it also ensures that cooperative frameworks can create a much better networked region where collective initiatives can help us mitigate and address the challenges of the day. These include disaster relief, healthcare cooperation beyond borders, environment, especially the health of the oceans and other global commons, as well as together combating the effects of climate change. Recognizing the simple fact that the nations around the Bay of Bengal are fundamentally affected by the complexities of climate change and by the complexities of sustained damage to the Bay of Bengal commons, we need to do much more collectively, both as India and Bangladesh, but also beyond within the sub-region through BIMSTEC and other such mechanisms, as well as in the larger framework of the Indo-Pacific, utilizing the only institution that brings together the eastern part of the Indo-Pacific and the western part of the Indo-Pacific, the IORA, of which Bangladesh is today chair, to come up with positive, forward-looking initiatives to help bring forward a more integrated approach to management of the global commons. Finally, of course, trade, connectivity, and transport linkages across the sub-region, which have consistently been underperforming, are an important aspect of realizing the potential of the Indo-Pacific. As we all know, the South Asian region is one of the least connected regions with the least amount of intra-regional trade and intra-regional travel. But Bangladesh and India are already set to sort of, how should I put it, to sort of detract from this traditional wisdom that South Asia will never be better integrated. Today, India-Bangladesh economic relations continue to develop rapidly. Travel, even in the sort of not quite post-COVID period, has resumed in fairly large numbers. And we see a significant opportunity for investment flows where India is one of the larger players in the Bangladesh economy and is interested in expanding its foothold in this important and vital neighboring country. We see the beginnings of a stronger sense of economic community in the sub-region defined by the Himalayan nations and the Bay of Bengal nations. Our greater effort to bring together through BIMSTEC and through other mechanisms cooperative trade ties, greater transportation linkages, cross-border connectivity will fundamentally bring to the Indo-Pacific a strengthened environment for greater trade and activities based on fundamental recognition of the collectivity of the commonality of our collective needs. Let me stop with that. I don't want to make this a lengthy speech about India-Bangladesh relations, but I do want to underline that for us, the notion of a cooperative, harmonious Indo-Pacific region is centered around the idea of maximum cooperation between the constituent nations of this region. And within that, the significance of a strong and stable relationship with Bangladesh, and of course, a strong, stable, prosperous, and progressive Bangladesh are critical elements of India's foreign policy as well as national security policy. In other words, to put it bluntly, our Indo-Pacific strategies and our national security strategies are predicated on ensuring that the India-Bangladesh relationship remains a fundamental pillar of strength in the entire region. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present here today. And of course, as always, a great pleasure to be with you again at IU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner Doraiswamy, for your very elaborate and very illuminating words, and for clarifying a number of issues and things that somehow have crept into public debate unnecessarily. Indeed, regional cooperation cannot be developed unless countries of the region first establish strong, good, fairly stable and friendly relations, because that is sine qua non for going beyond bilateralism to regional and multilateralism. And we are committed with bold and visionary leadership from both Bangladesh and India. We embarked on the process of reviving connectivities that had existed before we severed them. As you mentioned, we are perhaps the least integrated region in the world, but let us not forget our legacy and history, that we were the most integrated region in the world until 75 years ago. And I think that is the legacy which is a legacy of thousands of years that we need to recall and revive and put at rest the recent legacy of discord and disputations among us. I would like to publicly add a note of apology here. We had to move the order of speakers a little because Ambassador Doraisamy is having to contend with 2 or 3 delegations in the city and appointments with different. So may I request His Excellency Mr. Gabriel Vicentin to now address the audience and us, and indeed Bangladesh, to this podium. The European Union, sir, is a role model for countries and regions aspiring to come together. Your history of how you started humbly from being just the European Economic Community, focusing on 1 or 2 areas which you needed to rebuild Europe, a devastated Europe, up from the ashes, and then moving forward gradually to what you have become today, is something that we in this region, which used to be the most integrated less than 3/4 of a century ago, need to recapture and come back to that area. And that is where I think the concept of the Indo-Pacific, as Ambassador Doraisamy and indeed Ambassador Haas said, people have different ways of approaching it. Like human beings will approach the same thing in a different way because each is approaching from his own. But that does not take away from the commonality that we have in approaching that issue. And I think that is what we need to focus on more than what the differences are in our respective perspectives. Excellency Ambassador Gabriel Vicentin has been appointed EU Special Envoy for Indo-Pacific very recently in September 2021. He has served as head of the Parliamentary Affairs Division, the European External Action Service, and has had a very distinguished career. Ambassador Vicentin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I start, you mentioned the example that the European Union is in terms of integration. It all started through an integration of 2 sectorial policies. It's the European Community for Steel and Coal. I am particularly attached to this because I've been the head of cabinet to the last president of the European Community for Steel and Coal. But what you said is paramountly important because steel and coal were the means through which European countries brought war to each other. And after that, they decided to control it and to use it as a vehicle for development, economic integration. All started from there. The will to go beyond the means to make war and transform them in means to become richer, more prosperous, and to find ways and reasons to stay together. So thank you very much for this reference. It's very telling. Thanks a lot. So I'm particularly honored to take part in today's conference and to be invited to deliver opening remarks amongst such distinguished colleagues. And many thanks, of course, to the organizers and our perfect host, the university, to all of its 10,000 students, and above all, to its policy for women's empowerment. I think these all deserves a big clappings. So I was appointed, as you mentioned, as EU Special Envoy for the Indo-Pacific last September, and this is my first visit to Bangladesh. And I am, of course, more than delighted to discover this vibrant, dynamic country in person, although I also discovered the beauty of Dhaka traffic between yesterday and today, but that's part of the charm, I suppose. So it would be remiss not to mention first the war of aggression waged by Russia in Ukraine. This unprovoked, unjustified, brutal war is having a devastating impact in human and economic terms and has major ramifications beyond Europe, including here in Bangladesh. Rising commodity prices and disruption to global supply chains reverberate around the world, and the fragile stability that was being restored after the pandemic has been profoundly undermined. We must all work together to bring the war to an end, to ensure that international law, the UN Charter, the international rules-based order, and Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are upheld. Bangladesh's support for the UNGA resolution on the humanitarian consequences of the aggression against Ukraine, alongside 139 other states, sent a very valuable signal of support to the people of Ukraine and for the international rules-based order. This will strengthen international efforts to address the dire situation of the civilians caught in the humanitarian tragedy caused by Russian aggression. The necessity of defending the rules-based international order and working together with partners applies to all parts of the world, including here in the Indo-Pacific region. And I would like also to recall that we have approached the 51st year of independence of Bangladesh. We are in the last day of the Victory Month, but we still are in March. And I'm very happy that I am able to speak still in March. And all of this, but this talks to us about the right of peoples to self-determination, the right to have an integrity of borders, the right to stand up for each other's rights, and to affirm and protect the national identity. So Bangladesh is not only strategically placed in this region, it plays a crucial role in promoting an open, resilient, and interconnected Indo-Pacific. We welcome the increasingly active diplomatic role Bangladesh is playing, including through the chairmanship of key bodies for the region, such as IORA. The EU and Bangladesh share, which, by the way, are approaching as well their 50th year of diplomatic relations. It will be in 1 year time. So we are 1 year later than the States, but we are coming there as well. So the EU and Bangladesh share, since 49 years, similar goals. And their relationship is grounded in almost 5 decades of constructive engagement and cooperation. The relationship has transformed over time, reflecting the expanding scope of our cooperation. It has evolved from a focus on development assistance to an all-encompassing relationship based on equality and joint interests in tackling common challenges. The Indo-Pacific has emerged, is a crucial region for the future of the international order. The region already now produces 60% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of global growth. The Indo-Pacific is the second largest destination for EU exports and hosts 10 of its largest trading partners. And 40% of the global trade towards the EU originates from the Indo-Pacific. However, the region also presents a host of urgent challenges. To bolster this phenomenal growth from which the whole world benefits, the region will need to develop its digital, green, and sustainable infrastructure, for which there is an increasing demand. If unaddressed, climate change will profoundly undermine the impressive advances that have been witnessed in the region. The Indo-Pacific is already prone to disasters and produces the bulk of greenhouse gas emissions. This requires bold action to help countries abate their emissions and mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. The Indo-Pacific is also home to the largest sea trade lanes. Maintaining free, open, and secure lanes and navigation is in the best interest of all regional as well as worldwide partners. None of these challenges can, however, be addressed unilaterally. By definition, these require broad and inclusive cooperation, also and above all in their multilateral dimension, of which we consider UNCLOS as the keystone. The EU recognizes the strategic importance of fostering cooperation in the Indo-Pacific and, as it was mentioned already, in September 2021, the EU adopted its own Indo-Pacific strategy to promote a rules-based international order and underpinned by openness, inclusivity, and stability. The achievement of these goals requires a continuous engagement with an expanding range of partners over a widening scope of issues of common interest, from digital connectivity to health and climate change and security and defense. And a key vehicle from our side is the EU Global Gateway policy, which was launched in December 2021. The Global Gateway aims to bolster connectivity and help address the infrastructure development demand of its partners. Investments in digital, green, and sustainable infrastructure are paramount to boost economic growth and foster an interconnected Indo-Pacific. The EU looks at Bangladesh as a partner to develop joint projects and advance interconnectivity in the region. And on this, I would like to thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Momen, for his words in his opening address, with which all I concur. So Bangladesh is also a fundamental partner in the fight against climate change. Green and inclusive development is one of the three major priorities set out in the US 2021, European Union's multilateral indicatives program, agreed with Bangladesh. Moreover, through the European Green Deal, the EU will work with Bangladesh to strengthen its adaptation strategy by learning from Dhaka's own national adaptation plans and ensuring that partners live up to their commitments on climate finance. These are only examples of how the EU-Bangladesh relationship is evolving and how it will evolve further in the context of the Indo-Pacific region. The EU looks forward to working closely with Bangladesh and other partners to foster an open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency Gabriel Vicentin, for sharing your perspective, the EU's perspective of how you look at us and how you look at the Indo-Pacific, and the points that we can take as inspiration from your own journey towards integration in your region. I now have great pleasure in inviting Mr. Shabbir Ahmed Chaudhry. He is the Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Secretary West. He was the former Bangladesh High Commissioner to Mauritius, and he served in Bangladesh missions in Beijing, Brussels, London, and New York in different capacities. Mr. Shabbir Ahmed Chaudhry is there. Welcome, and we await your address. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The chief guest of today's event, His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, Honorable Foreign Minister, sir. His Excellency Peter Haas, Ambassador of the United States of America. His Excellency Mr. Vikram Doraiswamy, High Commissioner of India. Distinguished speakers of today's session. Ambassadors, High Commissioners, Excellencies, Vice Chancellor, Professors, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon. On this occasion, first, I'd like to express my profound regards to the greatest Bengali of all times, father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. I'd also like to pay my regards to the martyrs for achieving the independence of Bangladesh. I'd especially like to thank the Independent University of Bangladesh and the Embassy of the United States of America for holding this very important session. And especially, I would like to thank Ambassador Tariq Karim sir to invite me to say something in this event. In fact, Ambassador Tariq Karim sir, he is my mentor and also the mentor of all my contemporary colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today's topic in this session, that is Bangladesh's role in fostering an open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal and beyond, is an important one with respect to the geopolitical scenario. While many countries of the world are struggling to overcome the massive losses encountered by the COVID-19 pandemic and its restrictions, unfortunately, there are regions in the world where the conflicts are still sustaining for years and there are no indications of them being subdued. On the contrary, we are witnessing the emergence of new conflicts even in the midst of the pandemic and thus seriously affecting the whole world. History is a testimony to the fact that a conflict causes harm to all the parties. Especially in this globalized world, we will find numerous instances where conflicts create multifarious damages even to those who are not a party to it. One of the recent such example is obviously the Ukraine issue. Therefore, there is no room for complacency on our side. It is imperative that we work together to maintain a free and inclusive Bay of Bengal. The foreign relation of Bangladesh is guided by the foreign policy dictum of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, which is friendship to all and malice to none. Based on that principle, Bangladesh has been maintaining friendly relations with all the countries of the world, including the Indo-Pacific region, ever since its independence in 1971. Bangladesh started its journey with less than $100 per capita GDP. Today, under the stewardship of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, that figure has been elevated to around $2,500. Bangladesh was the chair of the least developed countries for a long time. Bangladesh is playing and contributing important role in the international arena in climate change, peacekeeping missions, counterterrorism, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and migration. The development process of Bangladesh can well be termed as commencing with aid and trade and now heading forward with development and strategic partnership. Bangladesh has maintained friendly relations with the littoral countries of the Bay of Bengal, both through bilateral engagement and by active participation in the regional organizations like SAARC, BIMSTEC, and BBIN. In the Indian Rim Ocean Association, where the littoral countries of the Bay of Bengal are a part of it, Bangladesh, as the current chair, is contributing significantly in the priority issues including maritime safety and security and blue economy. Bangladesh has peacefully settled the demarcation of its maritime boundaries with Myanmar and India in 2012 and 2014 respectively. Bangladesh is also employing all diplomatic efforts to resolve the Rohingya issue through maintaining friendly relations with Myanmar. Beyond the Bay of Bengal region, Bangladesh has been maintaining good relations with China, Russia, and the European Union countries. We are going to celebrate the golden jubilee of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Bangladesh and the United States of America on the 4th of April 2022. That is, after 4 days. During these last 50 years, our bilateral relations have grown extensively. USA happens to be Bangladesh's highest export destination country. It is one of the highest investing countries in Bangladesh. We received so far 68 million vaccines from USA. Our diaspora in USA are contributing to both the economies of Bangladesh and USA. We received commendable political and economic support from USA on the Rohingya crisis. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Bay of Bengal is a region of importance because of its strategic location, its use for trade, navigation, and marine resources. It caters for the livelihood of a good number of people of the littoral countries. A number of seaports are located here to facilitate trade among the regional countries and beyond. Many of the maritime resources, as well as the seabed and sub-seabed resources, are untapped. Bangladesh looks forward to making the best use of this region in terms of exploiting its potential through regional and international cooperation. In this way, all the countries concerned can make economic gains and achieve a win-win situation. This objective can be obtained only if a peaceful situation prevails and sustains in the Bay of Bengal region and beyond. Any dispute in the region must be settled by soft power under the ambit of the United Nations Conference of Law of the Sea and other international legal instruments. Bangladesh is a proponent of the culture of peace, human rights, economic development, and always opponent of conflict, hegemony, aggression, and infringement of territorial integrity. Bangladesh looks forward to maintaining a peaceful Bay of Bengal and also expects the same from the others. Bangladesh will engage itself in all regional and international fora and employ constructive diplomatic efforts maintaining a free and inclusive Bay of Bengal so that all parties can participate for economic development. We believe that through our concerted efforts, we can succeed in maintaining a peaceful, open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal. Jai Bangla. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Shabbir, for not only your very kind words directed at me, but for a very lucidly and with great clarity elucidating Bangladesh's policies, not just on the Indo-Pacific, but how we look at the globe, how we look at the region, and how we look at how relations should be built. I think fundamentally, we don't need a war in this region to bring us to the realization that we need to live and work with each other. The European Union came from that realization. It rose as a phoenix from the ashes of World War II, which followed World War I. And we don't need to repeat that experience. The wheel has been invented there, and you have shown us the way. And I think Ambassador Shabbir Chaudhry's very clear expose of what our policies are follows very clearly the statement made by Honorable Prime Minister, if you'll see them in the papers today, and indeed the speech recorded 2 days earlier by the Honorable Foreign Minister. I now invite my good friend, we have been colleagues in working together on South Asian regional integration with the World Bank, in which process I was involved as a champion for, 7 years or 8 years. Dr. Mercy Tembong, she is the World Bank's country director for Bangladesh and Bhutan, and I look forward to her statement of how the World Bank is going to be involved in furthering what we have in mind for the Indo-Pacific and how we look at the region. Dr. Mercy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellencies, all protocols observed, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. After listening to previous speakers, I'm sure you're going to hear some repeat of some of the things that you've already heard. But I just want to start by saying how delighted I am to be here again for the second time at the Independence University to participate in a very important conference like this one that is discussing issues of the Bay of Bengal. So Bangladesh's role in fostering an open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal is paramount. Given its strategic location, Bangladesh can be a regional logistic hub and serve as a bridge between South Asia and East Asia. Such transboundary connectivity is especially important for South Asia as it remains the most disconnected region, with interregional trade between its nations at only 5.6%, compared to 25% in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the ASEAN. According to a recent report that we did in the World Bank titled Connecting to Thrive, seamless cross-border connections could unleash vast economic benefits for Bangladesh, as large as 17% of its GDP. The benefits to India could also be enormous. Another report titled Deepening Linkages Between South Asia and Southeast Asia shows that a South Asia-Southeast Asia regional integration agenda that combines the liberalization of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, trade facilitation, and foreign direct investment barriers could boost gross domestic product by up to 10.6% in South Asia and up to 4% in Southeast Asia. Deepening integration in the Indo-Pacific can expand trade, generate greater inflow of foreign direct investments, and promote export diversification, digitization, and environmental protection. Bangladesh's strong growth trajectory and its favorable geostrategic location linking the South Asia region to the vibrant economies of the Indo-Pacific makes it an extremely vital neighbor to other countries of the region. This also makes regional cooperation core to Bangladesh's future development trajectory and aspirations to become an upper middle income country by 2031. At this stage, however, the cost of connectivity remains high. Many countries in the region trade on better terms with distant economies than with their neighbors. It is about 15 to 20% less expensive for a company in Bangladesh to trade with a company in Germany than with a company in India. Several factors account for the high cost of trade and transport, including high tariffs, non-tariff barriers, burdensome and costly custom processes, and inadequate transport and trade infrastructure. The Trade Restrictiveness Index, which captures the trade policy distortions that each country imposes on its import bundle, shows South Asia with the greatest protection compared to other regions. Moreover, South Asian tariffs applied to imports from Southeast Asia amounting to 6.9% are nearly 3 times higher than Southeast Asian tariffs on imports from South Asia at 2.8%, while the restrictiveness of interregional non-tariff barriers reaches an average ad valorem or a tariff equivalent of 225%. And significant barriers hamper trade in services in South Asia and Southeast Asia. Bangladesh needs to take concrete steps to achieve the benefits of its strategic location the benefits its strategic location offers. First, as a general proposition, the largest economic gains will come from policy reforms. These reforms covering goods, services, and investments, as well as concerted efforts to develop a contemporary transport and trade facilitation system, are extremely important for Bangladesh to maintain its competitiveness as it prepares to graduate from the least developed country status. This path of policy reforms could increasingly be appealing to policymakers in other Indo-Pacific countries, especially in investment in services, with the growing realization of its importance in the regional trading landscape. An ambitious regional integration agenda that covers trade and transport connectivity, underpinned by trade policy reforms, as well as digital, environmental, energy, and health reforms, could complement the national efforts. Bangladesh has begun developing a network of highways, waterways, and ports, leveraging riverine geography and coastline to ensure interregional transport efficiencies and provide benefit of port connectivity to landlocked neighbors like Bhutan, Nepal, India's northeast region. Bangladesh is already party to several regional connectivity initiatives, including Bangladesh-India-Nepal Motor Vehicle Agreement, MVA, and the Protocol on Inland Water Transit and Trade, PIVWTT. However, none of these agreements has been properly implemented. It is nearly 7 years since the MVA Framework Agreement was signed. That was in June 2015. The protocols for cargo and passenger movement are still being worked out. I am glad, though, that there has been some progress in recent weeks on moving this agreement forward, as this is vital to the vision of seamless connectivity. Cargo crossing time at the busiest border crossings in the sub-region are measured in days, not hours, as is the case in most other parts of the world. This comes with enormous cost to businesses and traders on both sides of the border. Additional measures will be required to move forward. Infrastructure should be built to at least the standards of the best performers in the region. Capacity of road, rail, and inland water corridors and land, river, and seaports must be enhanced to handle current and future freight volumes in a timely and cost-effective manner. Soft measures are equally important, including streamlining clearance and inspections regimes, reducing administrative barriers, and introducing information and communication technology and automation, leading to fewer human interactions. The World Bank is supporting the government of Bangladesh to implement some of these measures. Our support includes investments in multimodal connectivity infrastructure, regional road and waterways corridors, trade-enabling infrastructure, priority land ports, and digital and automated systems for trade, Bangladesh Trade Portal, and National Single Window. These are critical interventions to improve the conditions of regional trade and transit. In terms of trade policies, deeper regulatory cooperation could be pursued as part of free trade agreements and other regulatory mechanisms focused on developing capacity to address non-tariff barriers, regulatory challenges in service trade, including digital services, leveraging the untapped potential of FDI, and making regional trade more sustainable. Other examples of regional initiatives of interest include the deepening the regional energy market, increasing transboundary electricity trade based on seasonal surpluses and peak hour usage, will significantly influence the regional power market in BBIN. This will reduce the growing burden of fossil fuel imports for Bangladesh, create power export opportunities, enable Bangladesh to enhance utilization of clean forms of energy, such as solar and hydropower, while also resulting in greater price efficiencies and increased energy security. Growing the blue economy in a sustainable and inclusive manner. The Bay of Bengal is home to over 30% of the world's fishers. A World Bank report calculated ocean economy's contribution to Bangladesh as $16.2 billion in gross value added in 2015. These comprise largely of tourism and recreation, 25%, marine capture, fisheries and aquaculture, 22%, transport, 22%, offshore gas and oil extraction, 19%. Further, as many as 30 million people depend upon the country's ocean economy. The future growth in the blue economy will be driven by offshore oil and gas, shipbuilding, coastal and maritime tourism, mariculture, and coastal and offshore wind generation. Regional cooperation among the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA, and the Bay of Bengal economies will be critical to sustaining the blue economy benefits through coordinated and joint marine resources management. FDI and knowledge exchange in emerging technologies and industries and enhanced maritime connectivity. Creating a regional health and disease surveillance network. Not only is South Asia the only region in the world which lacks a regional disease surveillance network, its countries also fare poorly on Global Health Security Index parameters. Given the strategic prominence of Bangladesh, its friendly relations with other countries in the region, and its high vulnerabilities to disease burdens, it could take the lead in partnership with India and other countries to develop a regional program on health cooperation and disease surveillance. India has already suggested greater long-term cooperation in the health sector among South Asia and Indian Ocean island countries to meet the challenges of the current and future emergency. To conclude, the World Bank, which is also celebrating 50 years of partnership with Bangladesh, is very committed to support Bangladesh in achieving its development goals in general and in fostering an open, resilient, and interconnected Bay of Bengal. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mercy, for your statement and for expressing your continued support to our efforts, to what we are doing in the region, not just the immediate sub-region, but the larger region, regional aspirations that we have. I will, before calling on Dr. Niaz Ahmed Khan, our Pro Vice Chancellor, I just want to take the opportunity. I recognize several ASEAN colleagues here, and we welcome your presence here, Ambassador Makawati and others. And I also recognize the presence of a good old friend, the chairman of the Cosmos Foundation, Inayatullah Khan, who is here in the audience. May I now request Professor Dr. Niaz Ahmed Khan to deliver his vote of thanks.
Salam and good afternoon, everyone. As we come to the close of this eventful program, it's my privilege to accord a vote of thanks to all of you. My appreciation for each of you who has taken the time to join us either in person or online. And given the more stringent considerations of COVID restrictions, security, and also preferred convenience, we actually have a relatively large number of people, including our students, joining us virtually, including the social media. My appreciation for the chief guest, His Excellency Dr. Abdul Momen, our Honorable Foreign Minister, for sending this message. And as you know, he was scheduled to be with us, but he very graciously sent us this message. This message, to me, served to provide the wider context of this conference. It was truly very thoughtful of him. We have a very starry audience today. The remarks, although very briefly made by the very distinguished colleagues, to start with His Excellency Ambassador Peter Haas, His Excellency Mr. Gabriel Vinson, His Excellency Ambassador Vikram Doraiswamy, High Commissioner Doraiswamy, His Excellency Ambassador Shabbir Ahmad Chaudhary, our Secretary West, His Excellency Dr. Mercy Tembon, the Country Director for World Bank. They made brief comments, and I found them much beyond just diplomatic speeches, formal talks. I could see, and I'm sure my academic colleagues would agree, that many of these ideas are heavily laden in academic context and contents, and you could actually draw very useful research clues from some of their comments and notes, which hopefully over the next two thematic sessions and the conclusion session that we have some opportunity to explore further. So thanks to each of you for enriching us, for your personal presence and the speeches that you made online or in person. They have truly been useful contributions, even from an academic point of view. We are also joined here in the audience by some very distinguished personalities. We have got with us Mr. Saber Ahmed Chaudhary, the Honorable Member of Parliament and the Chair of the Standing Committee on Environment, Climate Change, but he really doesn't need this official designation. Saber Ahmed Chaudhary is, by his own contribution and merit, is a leading environmentalist in this country. And we are honored to have him. We have here other very distinguished members of the diplomatic corps from Bangladesh, from the European Union, from ASEAN. And just to mention a few names, we have got Admiral Khurshid Alam with us. We have got Ambassador Mashfi bint Shams with us, and Mr. Anayatullah Khan with us. If I missed some of you, please do forgive me. But when we say this, beyond any formality, we are truly honored to have all of you here today. The members in the media, print and online, thank you, our friends, the journalists. The colleagues in administration, in the academia of this university, thank you for all your support. We are particularly thankful to the organizers, the team of the Center for Bengal Studies, of course, led by no less than our very distinguished colleague, Ambassador Tariq Karim, his team, including Dr. Imadul Islam, and the team from the US Embassy. You have done an excellent job. We have had several occasions in the recent months of greater collaboration and functional partnership between the US Embassy and this university under the overall guidance of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Tanveer Hassan. On behalf of my Vice Chancellor, let me say that we remain deeply committed to any such effort in furthering the common cause of having a safe, resilient, and interconnected Indo-Pacific. With those words, let me thank you once again for your time and presence, and we hope this is the beginning of a much longer relationship, both functionally and personally, between us. God bless.
Thank you very much, Pro Vice Chancellor, for your words. With that, formally, I can declare the inaugural session over. I think there's an administration announcement to be made, and then we shall proceed to lunch.
Thank you, Ambassador Tariq Karim, sir. And thank you, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, for giving his speech. And now I would like to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Tanveer Hassan, PhD, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Niaz Ahmed Khan, PhD, our session moderator, Ambassador Tariq Karim, and all our special guests and guests of honor, His Excellency, Mr. Saber Hossain Chaudhry, MP, Honorable Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bangladesh Parliament, to join us at a lunch in the multipurpose hall. For students, they'll be able to collect their food coupons outside of the auditorium, and we'll start our thematic session 1 after the lunch here at 2 p.m. Thank you all.